for coming along. You probably have come along to the session we did on transitions about a month ago now. And this one is the follow-up to that. And it's what we call a community of practice webinar. That's where I hand it back to you and you give me all your hints and tips and share ideas. And we talk about what's worked practically in our settings to support children with transitions. Hopefully, I'm fingers crossed, Slido is working. And so you'll need your phone to do Slido. If it doesn't work, we'll just do it on the chat. So this is, as usual, a Stronger Practice Hub webinar with myself, Kim Barnetson. We have Lisa Walter and Damon Howlett from the barn. And Damon's going to be our IT person because I can't see the chat while I'm doing the PowerPoint. So if you need to say anything, that's absolutely fine. Just pop it in the chat or just unmute yourself and shout out and interrupt me. I'm very happy to have interruptions. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you to all the other fantastic childminders who have already shared some information and photos with me. And I've tried to sort of incorporate some of their ideas into what we're going to talk about tonight. But if they're on here, I know Marion is, please feel free to sort of elaborate when we get to those points. So here's our agenda for the evening. This evening, we're going to recap what do we mean by transitions, just for anyone who may not have been to the other session. We're going to start off thinking about babies. How do we support babies as they join our setting? Then we're going to have a think about supporting children when they're either moving on to school or to other settings. And then I've broken down to two bits, the difficult stuff. So supporting children during big life changes. That would be house moves, family breakup, bereavement, that type of thing. And then the little stuff doesn't mean the little stuff isn't important, but it's the everyday micro transitions that we're supporting children with all the time. And then a little bit about regression and how we support it. And then right at the very end, I've got the proven approaches that we spoke about in the last session, just so we can see how our own practice sort of tallies with the proven approaches. And I'm pretty sure it does actually, because I know what amazing practitioners you all are. So let's get started. First of all, what do we mean by transitions? So transition, the word itself just means change. And we do often think of transitions as really big things like moving house or having new siblings or going on to school. I mean, school tends to be the big one, doesn't it? But actually, transitions are happening all the time. We can have micro transitions. That's things like finishing one activity, moving on to something else, time to go home. I mean, at my setting tonight, honestly, it was my granddaughter, so it's sort of slightly different. She has to be dragged out screaming most evenings. And I mean, what the neighbours must think, heaven only knows. Her house is actually very nice and she's got very nice parents, but obviously just not quite as nice as me. And the thing to remember, though, is that any transition is a process, not an event. It's not just a thing that happens that day. We're just starting school or we're just starting a new setting. It's something that we have to travel with the children through this transition, through this change, and we need to make it a normal sort of change, so that where children struggle quite often is when something happens without them having control over it. And that can have a big effect on their emotions and how to cope and how to self-regulate in this sort of the chaos of the moment. But if we can think of transitions as a process and work with the children over time, that really supports them. And if we can support these micro transitions, these everyday smaller things, then that helps children to have the tools already set up in their emotions to be able to manage bigger transitions when they come. Obviously, there are some transitions in life that happen without warning. Bereavement, sometimes, family breakup, that type of thing. But even so, we can't know that's going to happen. So what we do is support the children with the small transitions and then be there as the emergency backup when the big difficult transitions happen. So this at the bottom, we are all in transition. Life changes all the time. It's just part of life. Life is change, isn't it? All the time. And we can support children to manage this. The reason that it's very difficult for children is it's all new to them, whereas to us, we know that that change happens and it's okay and we can adapt to it, but they haven't got those skills yet. So that's our job. So get your phones ready. Hopefully the Slido is going to work on the next screen. How are you supporting babies when they start at your setting? Now, if you're in a setting that doesn't take babies, you're starting at 2 or whatever, 3-year-olds, just think about them. So what we're thinking about here is your settling in sessions. I've got a little quiz. I'm hoping it's going to work. No, it didn't work. Okay, don't worry, we won't worry about that. We'll just stay on this blank screen for a moment.
You just get them to put it in the chat, Kim, couldn't you?
Yeah, I was going to say, pop it in the chat.
Uh,
The question was,
uh,
how many settling in sessions do you offer? Was it 1 to 2? Was it 3 to 5? More than 5? Or it depends on the child? So just pop in the chat what you do, and we'll have a look and we'll have a chat about the chat. Let's see. Sarah, thank you, Sarah. That was nice and quick. 3, usually, then more if needed. Lovely. 2 from Francesca. Depends on the child and the family. Depends on the child. 2 for Vicky. We offer as many as needed. Depends on the child and also sometimes the parents who are also. That's a very good point, Marion. Quite often it's the parents that need the support more than the children, isn't it? Nikki, 3. Depends on how long from Jennifer. Yeah. I'll just wait to see if we get any more. Depends on the child. Adapt as needs arise. Lovely. Thank you, everyone. Keep typing. Feel free to keep typing and I'll just chat over the top of it. That's absolutely perfect. That's the sort of thing I was expecting to see, that you have a sort of usual or normal sort of settling in that tends to work for most of the children in your experience, but that you're all willing to be flexible and adaptable depending on the child. We don't always have the choice, do we? You might have a family that has to start quite quickly for some reason, but if you have time, it's always worth allowing children as many settling in sessions as you can possibly fit in at different times of the day as well, so they know what happens at different times of the day. It does really depend on the child, as Shabana has said here, because some children just march right in and get on with it, don't they? And others really do struggle with that transition. But when you think about the thing about transition as a process, not an event, if we can make that settling in session, that process, get to the point where when they start coming to you, it's just normal. It's as normal as at your child going to the grandparents or whatever, or your friend's child coming to play at your house. It's normal, and it feels normal for them to come to your setting, and that's the point when we've supported them through that transition. They might need a bit of support the other side, mightn't they? But generally speaking, we've supported them through that if we've treated each child as an individual, and as Marion quite rightly said, the family as well, because sometimes you do get families, especially if it's their first child or if they've got some sort of trauma going on behind them that's can make them quite anxious about leaving their child, or their own experiences of childcare when they were little. I know I've had parents in the past who have said, who sort of opened up to me about their own experiences at childcare settings, and they think they're doing the same thing to their child. And of course you need to be able to reassure them, and the way to reassure them is because their child is so happy and relaxed and enjoys being in your setting. So thank you for that, and not thank you to Slido. I did log in, but it obviously doesn't want to work. Never mind. Oh, There we go. Now, this was going to be another Slido one. I think for this one, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves. Please don't worry about talking online. It's absolutely fine. It's only me. Let's have a think about how are we supporting children when they're changing settings? So a child going off maybe from childminders to a preschool, or when they start school. What's your your top tips? If you had a childminder or someone new to early years who came to you and said, you know, I don't know what to do to support children going into school, what would be the top tips you'd give them? So feel free to unmute yourself and just shout out, and that would be fantastic. And anyone who doesn't shout out, I'm going to have to call on you, I'm afraid. Anyone?
We do lots of things here. So, for example, if a child is starting school, we often walk to the school, talk about the school, make sure we have the school uniform in our dressing up box so they can practice putting it on. I'm quite lucky that I have close relationships with the schools, so I kind of know the routines and can talk to children about that. We have photos that often have to be updated because staff change quite a lot, but photos of who their teacher might be so we can talk to them about them. We are very lucky that the most local school, the teacher often does come to our setting to meet the children that are moving up, which is really lovely.
That's fab.
But a lot of it is also just being really positive with the children about moving and acknowledging feelings. So, you know, yes, I'm sad that you're leaving, but I'll still see you on the school run, and you're going to love school, and it's going to be amazing. But allowing them to have those feelings and talk about those feelings, reading books about you know, kind of emotions and feelings. I know you're going to talk about Dopey Donkey later, but kind of just recognizing that one day they're excited about school and then the next day they might be sad. It kind of changes. And also we've had issues here with the children that aren't moving on being really upset that their friends are. So there's an element of transition for those children as well that it's kind of important to remember. And sometimes children are being picked up by you, maybe by their parents another day. So we do a little chart to show them, look, on a Monday, I'm going to come and get you from school, and that'll be great. And then on Tuesday, mom's going to come and get you, so that they can just know what to expect, because they can get confused with all of the new places they're going and who's picking them up. And it's a lot of change in quite a short period of time for those little ones. So we just try to help with visual pictures and talking about it and getting them ready for those independent moments at school. You know, they can put their coats on, they can carry their tray to lunch, and we all practice together the whole time that they're here. So by the time they leave, those things are easy for them. So they can deal more with the emotional side of things and aren't freaking out when they have to do stuff by themselves. And we had a meeting with the school, and they told us what they'd like the children to be able to do. So that was quite useful. But it's tricky when your children are going off to like 5 different schools or 3 different schools to be able to do that. So I'm quite lucky that most of mine do leave here and go to the closest school.
Yeah. Thank you, Marion. I agree. That's really key. Like you said, is when you said that about them carrying a tray or getting changed into PE kit or being able to put their school uniform, their coat on. And by the time they get to school, they can do that. That's what we mean, really, by making things normal, don't we? It's normal. This is a normal thing. And also, I think on the when we did the original transitions webinar, one of the things we were talking about was that it's okay to be worried, but we shouldn't sort of try and gloss over this. Oh, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. It'll be okay. We should try and take these concerns that they might have, like you say, they're happy one day, but the next day they might have thought of something, mightn't they? But what will happen if no one remembers to pick me up? Or what would happen if I don't take my lunchbox to school that day, or whatever it is? And rather than just saying, oh, it'll be okay, it'll be okay, don't worry, it'll be okay, it's really helpful for children, I think, isn't it? If we can help them to navigate those worries and come up with solutions together, you know. We'll make sure, like you say, about your timetable, so you know which day who's going to pick you up from school. because it must be quite worrying for children, mustn't it? All these so many new things all at once. And yeah, I agree. I'm quite, most of my children go off to one school. And I've been collecting from that school for over 30 years with my own children. So I've been there longer than most of the staff. But I do know, yeah, I know most of the teachers, and the foundation teacher is lovely. And she did the same for me. She told me, I had a call with her a couple of years ago, and we spoke about what do you actually want those children to do. And if anyone was interested, right at the end of this, in the references and further reading, there's a link to a really good video about starting school. And it's a really good one to share with parents, because parents quite often panic at this point, don't they, about oh, my child can't read or write and my friend's child can read and write. No, that's not what we mean by school readiness. And this little video really, it just sums it up so brilliantly, that what we need, as Marion said, is them to be able to put their shoes on, put their coats on, manage in the toilet, be able to manage their lunch by themselves, with minimal help. They might still need help with some things, mightn't they? Because only 4, most of these children. Thank you for that, Marion. I'm just going to read through the chat and see where we got to. Try and take the children to the school before they start. That's a very good idea, Shabana. I think pre-COVID, a lot of myself included, and a lot of the other childminders, and I used to be able to be in school a lot more. Used to go to assemblies and things like that. That's sort of changed a little bit, hasn't it? But whatever you can do to familiarize the children with the idea of school, even if it might not be the school they're going to, just be familiar with it, is really, really best practice. Kingsway Preschool, thank you. Familiarity, route to school, practice putting on uniform, visits to us and to the school, photo books, yeah, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely amazing, well done. Settling in sessions with the school, yes, yeah, they quite often, most schools have some quite good settling in session arrangements nowadays, don't they? With all sorts of different ways of doing it. One thing I've always found a little bit tricky is they tend to be in the summer term, and for a 4-year-old, 6 weeks of summer holidays must feel like it was in a past life. It's such a long time ago, isn't it? But then that's up to us and the parents to sort of keep that fresh in their memory, isn't it? Being positive and excited, yes, thank you, Vicky. That's a very good thing. I talk a lot, and they know the school. As we do a school run and we take part in school activities, school sports day, yeah, they're confident the school is a familiar place. Yes, I totally agree, because even though we don't go into the school quite so much, we're there picking up in the playground. So just the idea, the children have the idea that one day that will be them, and one day I'll be waiting in the playground and they'll come out. Only today, one of my little ones said, when I go to school, will you bring me a snack too? Because one of my little ones after school is so hungry, I always put something in my pocket. So the minute he comes out of the door, he can grab a snack, because he's just so hungry. He can't wait even the 10 minutes for us to get home for snack. And of course, yes, I will bring a snack for them as well. So thank you, everyone. Amazing, amazing ideas. And just the sort of thing we want to share with other settings, people who might not be so familiar or experienced with the way to support children through these transitions. Let's see if PowerPoint's going to let me skip to the next screen. Maybe not. Don't you love it when you do something and it works, and then you try to do it live and it doesn't work? What is it? It's like your computer knows that you're trying to do something. Right, hold on. I've stopped sharing for a second. I'm going to go back in and maybe it will refresh. Bear with me a second, everyone. Sorry about this. I think it's because of Slido. Ah, okay. Right, now bear with me. I've got it back on the right screen again. You've all been very patient. Thank you, everyone. Now you just got to wait for it to start up again. Okay, so lots of childminders, amongst them Marion, shared some ideas about books and that type of thing that can help children through with the emotional changes they might go through. And you know, you can get a book on pretty much everything. I've got books on parents dying, grandparents having dementia, going into hospital, moving house, all sorts of things, and I'm sure you have too. I just put a very small selection up here, just to give you an idea of what you could be doing. If you're in Essex, the local authority have been giving out the Worrysaurus book to all the settings, which is quite a nice one. So let's have a think now about the difficult stuff. So big changes when children are really struggling with maybe changes that we hadn't foreseen. For example, families breaking up or a bereavement. How are we managing that? Because that's a transition that we can't have prepared them for usually. We might not even know that it's going to happen until it suddenly arrives on our doorstep, so to speak, when you ask the parents, is everything okay? And they tell you what's happened. So in that situation, we're really supporting the children's emotional resilience, aren't we? We're trying to negotiate this horrible, or navigate this horrible time, horrible, confusing time for them. So either shout out or pop it in the chat again. Any hints and tips? Again, imagine you're talking to a new practitioner who wants to know how to support a child in this situation. What would you say to them? What would be your top tips? Just have a look at the chat so I can see when it comes up. And feel free to just shout out. Honestly, you don't have to type. It's quicker if you just shout. Shabana, this is the perfect answer. Being patient with the child. Yes, thank you. It must be very confusing for a child to be suddenly in that situation and not really understand what's going on. Vicky, yeah, make sure their feelings are heard. That's a brilliant answer as well. And I think that's why we should all be working to support children's emotional well-being and emotional intelligence, I guess, is what I'm trying to get across. So when we look at books like The Colour Monster or In My Heart or things like that, where we're talking about feelings and giving them the language that they need to describe how they feel at certain times, that's invaluable, because then when they are in those very difficult circumstances, they have hopefully the capacity to be able to explain how they're feeling. And when a child can talk about that with someone, that's just the best possible thing you can do, isn't it? I mean, let's hope we're not going to have children in these situations, but we do, invariably we do, don't we? We have children who are struggling for all sorts of reasons. So Lindsay, ensure that you give children the consistency so they have a safe space if everywhere else is a bit turbulent. That is a very good point, Lindsay. Well done. Yeah, I think quite often, I know from my own practice, quite often you can be the calm centre in a whirlpool of confusion, can't you? And that's really critical for a child. If we were going to go back to attachment theory, which we were talking about in the previous webinar with the transitions, that basically when a child has transitioned into your setting, they've formed an attachment with you. And as a secure attachment figure, you offer that secure space for them, don't you? Marion, staying in close contact with parents. So who is collecting? How is everyone doing? How have they been at home? Recognizing that the child has big emotions and validating that, but they may also be picking up the parents' emotions too. Having books about different families, moving home, watching and noticing their mood and what they prefer. Yeah. Do they need a quiet space, or do they prefer a chat and a cuddle? Yes, definitely. The child needs to take the lead there. We need to take our lead from the child, is what we're trying to say, isn't it? Really. Especially some of us might not have ever been in some of these situations before that this child is in. We can't really always tell how they're going to be feeling. And Marion's made a very good point there about the parents, because how the parents feel can affect how how they are behaving can affect how the children react, can't it? The children might feel responsible for something happening and sort of try and protect one or other parent. Or they may feel that if they're upset, it's upsetting the parent too. This is why I think in a later webinar, we're going to talk about behaviour. But for me, and I'm sure for you as well, behaviour is always a form of communication to me. And you have to see behind the behaviour to what they're trying to communicate. This is why if we can give them these tools about talking about emotions all the time, make that normal, make talking about emotions normal, not just when they're in these situations, and then it becomes okay to talk about it, doesn't it? Thank you, everyone. That's brilliant. Let's see if PowerPoint will help be kind to us and move us along to the next slide. Come on. It just doesn't. Oh, we got it. Oh, okay. This is where Marion comes into her own. So the little stuff, I'm not suggesting, Marion, that your dopey donkey is a little thing, but it seems to me like dopey donkey might be an everyday thing. So I've just put a few suggestions on here that we've had from other childminders and from myself. One of them on the left-hand side is one of my little photo books that I do for the children in the setting, and we do them. I do them maybe twice a term. I don't put any words in there. They're just photos. We sort of use them as a communication tool, but it's a really helpful way of looking back on things we've done in the past, places we've been, people we've known. And I don't know, particularly in our setting, we lost 2 pets just before Christmas last year. And there are pictures of the pets in those books, the rabbit and the cat. And it's led to quite a lot of chat about what happened. Where are they? Where have they gone? I really missed them. I loved giving them a cuddle. I loved feeding them, that type of thing. So that's all helping towards that emotional resilience and that emotional sort of intelligence, understanding that we feel sad and we not move on, but we transition, but we can still remember things in the past. And I think Marion's done something similar with your photo books. And then I would wonder if, Marion, would you have a minute to talk about Dopey Donkey, please?
Sure. So Dopey Donkey is a very cute donkey puppet that is a member of our setting. So he kind of is like another child, but he doesn't count in ratio, fortunately. And we use him for so many different things. So we use him for behavior, but we also use him quite a lot for big emotions, where it's useful to separate perhaps the emotion from the child so that we can talk about it without it being necessarily about one individual child. So actually, the little girl you see in the picture is very much struggling with the idea that quite a few of her friends are leaving in July. They'll be leaving our setting because they're not here in the holidays and they're going off to school. And she has struggled. She's brilliant in the setting, but even if a new child is coming in, she finds that quite hard, and she'll regress a bit, but we know to expect it now. But the idea that her friends are leaving is really affecting her. So we had gotten out Dopey Donkey, and Dopey Donkey had a really bad day at school because he found out that a lot of his friends were leaving, and he was really sad about it. And we actually just sit and talk, and the children help come up with ideas of how to help Dopey Donkey and how to make him feel better and help him navigate this new situation in his life. And what I really like about it is that the ideas come from them. So they're kind of telling me what they need for themselves, but they're doing it for him. And we talked about how we might still see each other, and how, when we go after school, we meet new friends and new people were going to come into the setting that would be our friends, and etc. etc. And this little girl just grabbed him and said, "It's okay, Dopey Donkey, I'm going to stay here with you." And gave him a big cuddle. And it was just a really sweet moment. Fortunately, she is staying, so I didn't have to navigate that conversation of, no, actually, you're going to school, or have to go buy her a Dopey Donkey puppet to take home. But it is a really useful tool, I find, for separating out kind of what I think children are feeling and what's actually going on. It's been useful not only for kind of leaving situations, but we have 3 children in our setting at the moment that are moving house. And so he's been really useful for that. And you kind of, through conversations with him, you find out that, like, one little boy thought he wasn't going to get to take his toys with him. He didn't understand, because they'd visited houses that had other people's stuff in it. He thought he was just moving into their home with that stuff. And so we got out boxes, and they helped Dopey Donkey pack all of his favorite toys, and we pretended like we were moving, and we put a for sale sign on the little home kitcheny area. But if we hadn't played with Dopey Donkey, I wouldn't have known that that's what that child thought. So it's just really useful to get him out and kind of talk about things that have happened. And we don't just use it for transition. We use it, if they're snatching. Oh no, Dopey Donkey's been snatching at school. What can we teach him? It's such a good tool, and they love him. And he's silly. He nibbles their toes. He gives them kisses. And they don't really get him out to play with as a puppet. He is actually a member of the setting, and they know that. So he only comes out. They'll ask for him, and he'll get him out. But they don't really play with him like they do some of our other puppets. He is more of a friend that we help.
That's lovely, Marion. Thank you for explaining that. What a lovely idea, isn't it? I just think you're quite right. It's good to sort of be able to talk about emotions without it making about sort of focusing on a specific child and making them feel anxious or like in the limelight, isn't it? I find that these things quite often come up, these big questions, like you say, where it would be obvious to you that you would take your things with you if you're moving house. But we forget sometimes that children don't know those things. And once you've heard that concern and that worry, you can deal with that really easily, can't you? That child can be reassured and explain, that can be explained very easily, can't it? But I think I find it quite often comes up either in role play or in small world play. Any of those sort of worries or concerns quite often come up. So I don't know, the toy elephant might be the one that's worried about. I've got a child that was worried because their other sibling was sick in the night and they saw it, and that's made them worry that they're going to be sick. And then when we were playing with some role play, sort of ornamental elephants today, and with that, one of the elephants was going to be sick, and it led to this big conversation about it's okay, and that sometimes we are sick, but it's okay, and it's not something to be worried about. That sort of helped to open that door into making these things a little bit more normal. And we talked about why you might feel poorly, what might have happened, and obviously why it's important to wash your hands and all that sort of stuff. So that actually had a good knock-on effect. Thank you, Marion. Yeah, so I think anything we can do to support these like little day-to-day, when I say little, I don't mean to disparage them and make them smaller than they are. It just means stuff that happens all the time, not these big dramatic changes that we think of when we think of transitions. Has anyone else got anything they'd like to share about the day-to-day micro transitions, the coming into your setting, the going home from your setting, the finishing one activity and moving on to something else, or the type of thing where it's time to get ready to go to school, and and some children just don't want to. So how are you managing those, and how would you advise someone else in your situation how to support with that? Timelines work well for us. That's a good one. Would you mind unmuting yourself and just explaining what you mean by that and how you actually do them? Do you mean a visual thing, or how are you doing it?
Yeah, they're normally photos either from places in our setting. So it might be the garden, the front door, things like that, toys, but just put them in a line. And the children, we've got like a little box next to it. So the children that are struggling with the session sort of thing, they take off the picture of what's happened. So it might just be playing. They'll post that picture away. Then when they've had snack, they'll take off that one and post it away. So just really so they can visually see that time is moving down, because hasn't got the concept of the time. They can see that the activities are going and it's leading towards home, so they know that at the end of it, it's home.
So. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's a really good point, because you're right, children don't understand the concept of time, and the only way they have to understand, the only thing they've got to hang it on is this sort of routine, whether we have a sort of a very structured routine, as some larger settings do, or whether, like most childminders, we have a very sort of open routine. Even then, you've still got a routine, haven't you? You still come in the morning, you're still having lunch at the same sort of time, you're still going home at the same sort of time. And the things that you do throughout the week might have this sort of cycle as well. This links quite well to Steiner, doesn't it? And the cycle of the day, the cycle of the week, the cycle of the year, and how that's how children understand the world around them, because we as humans look for patterns, don't we? And if we can understand a pattern, we know how we can forecast the next pattern. So that's what you sort of do with a timeline, isn't it? You're forecasting what's happening, and you've got some control over what's happening. And when you've got control over something, you are less likely to feel anxious about it. Chloe, we announced that we have 5 more minutes, and the children repeat it back, so no play is coming to an end. Yeah, thank you for that. Can I just ask, Chloe, and please feel free to unmute yourself, do you feel that the children understand what you mean by 5 more minutes? I suppose it depends on their age, really, doesn't it? Or do you use a timer or a sound or something?
Okay,
like
so sorry to jump in.
No,
So basically what we do is we transition to the garden, and from the garden, because I'm at a preschool.
Yeah.
So what we do it every single day. So we have children that are from ages 2 to 3, and then 3 to 4. So we have, like, we class them as teddies and bears. So the bear children have obviously were teddies previously, so they encourage the younger children to show them. But we say, we go, preschool, show us 5 fingers, and then they show us 5 like fingers on the hands, and then we say 5 more minutes, and then they repeat it back, 5 more minutes. So then they continue with their play, and then we put a tidy up song on. So then they tidy away their toys, and then they line up, and then we transition like that to go to the garden.
Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining that. So that is a little bit like we were just saying about timelines. It's a little bit like that, but an oral timeline almost, isn't it? This is going to happen. And then that sound of the tidy up song is an oral reminder of what's coming up next. And then it's sort of giving them that structure to that time, and they know that when that happens, that it's home time or going out into the garden or whatever the next thing is. Thank you for that. That's really interesting. Did anyone else have anything they'd like to add to that?
Sorry, it's me again.
Go
for smaller settings, if you are a little bit more relaxed in your routine, which we sometimes tend to be, instead of having an entire visual timeline, just a now and then sometimes works. So right now we're going to have snack, and then we're going to go outside, or whatever it is that you're doing. Just have the 2 pictures up, so you're not assigning a time to it or anything, but just so they know what's coming next is often quite useful. And we use a song as well for tidy up time. But I got a really good tip from a man named Teacher Tom that runs a kind of amazing preschool in America. And he was basically saying that tidy up time can be incredibly frustrating for adults, because you've always got those kids that won't join in. Those kids that always are the best tidy upper kind of thing. And basically, it was don't sweat it. Like, there's always going to be adults that don't always join in as well. But when they are tidying up, instead of telling them what to do, if you just go, oh, I see Grace putting away the blocks. And oh, look, Luca's putting away the picnic. And you're not actually even assigning and saying, oh, well done. You're just telling what you see. And can I just say it works? All of the kids hear you say that, and then they start running to tidy up too, so that you say their name. And literally, I just stand in the middle of the room and go, oh, I see this child doing that. And I see this child doing that. And I can't believe how well that works.
Wow, that's fantastic, isn't it? I tell you, one of the things I've always struggled with tidy up time is that not all of my children leave at the same time. So who is responsible for the tidy up? Do you know what I mean? Is it the child that leaves at 4? But then the other children that leave at 5 might still be playing with that resource. And then one of them leaves at 4:45, but the other child's, it's sort of, that's always been a bit of
I don't really do an end of the day tidy up, but we do have, like, before lunch, we all tidy up together, and things like that, because those that are going to school will have tidy up time. So we kind of have set, before we sit down to eat our lunch, we do pack away our toys, and we try to teach them to tidy up when they're finished. But with the best will in the world, that doesn't always work. Plus, someone else might be playing with that still, so you can't tidy up while they're playing. So we do have just kind of a couple just before lunch and just before dinner. We do a big tidy up, but I don't really worry about it at home time for that exact reason. I just tidy up at the end.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I just tidy up afterwards. After they've gone home, or I tend to sort of hover around in the background, just picking up random things, just so it's keeping on top of it a little bit. Although I have to say, today we tried to make Play-Doh from shaving foam, sand, and corn flour. I found some stuff in the craft cupboard when I was having a clear out, and we thought, oh, we'll just have a go with this. And we ended up with this amazing gloop all over the conservatory, and everything was sort of caked in this thick, cementy sort of stuff that we'd been using on the coffee table. And I said to the children, I really don't know how we're going to clear this up when we'd finished. And they had this brilliant idea. They took all the stuff outside and asked if we could get the hose out. It was raining, but what the heck. And we hosed it all off outside. And well, they did it all by themselves. I just sort of had to turn the hose on for them because it's a bit stiff. And I thought, oh, yeah, well done for you. Because I was thinking, oh, no, I've got to clear this stuff up now. But yeah, it was actually, they came up, like you say, with saying earlier, they come up with these brilliant ideas, and we sort of quite often as adults feel we have to manage what they're thinking, and actually they're quite capable of these things themselves. Thank you so much. You're all coming up with such brilliant ideas. Give me a second. I'm just going to try and move to the next screen. Come on, PowerPoint. You can do it. It did it. Do you like my lovely AI child? I asked AI to make me a picture of a sad child sucking their thumb and holding a blankie. So let's have a quick think about regression. How are we dealing with that? Are we managing that? So again, let's have a think about, imagine we've got a new practitioner who says to you, I have a 4-year-old who all of a sudden has gone back to sucking their thumb, or carrying their blankie with them, or whatever their sort of comfort thing is. Now, most of us are quite experienced practitioners here, aren't we? So I think I know what you're going to say. But what would you say to this new person? Would you say, that's okay, don't worry about it, that's just their way of managing through this emotion? Or would you say, well, a 4-year-old shouldn't be sucking their thumb, or having a blankie, or I don't allow blankies in my setting? How would you manage that? Let's have a look. Feel free to shout out again or pop it in the chat, whichever works for you. Angeline, I'll just read this while you're having a think about regression. I started to pick toys up and asked one of the children to help me put toys away. He responded, Alexa, help Angeline put the toys away. Wouldn't that be amazing? I'm the last house in the country that hasn't got Alexa, I'm afraid. I don't have an Alexa, so that it really puzzles the children that I don't have those sort of things. But I do know what an Alexa is. Yeah, that's really funny though, isn't it? Actually really smart. What a smart way of thinking. Why should he pick it up when someone else is going to do it? One of the things I've always felt as well is I want children to feel like if they're partway through something, at the end of the day and they're going home, I'm not going to put that away unless it's going to cause an accident or it's something outside that's going to get rained on or something like that. If it's something they're partway through and they're going to continue that the next day, I want to facilitate that in my setting. So I'm happy to generally leave things out. I might put things to one side a little bit, just so things don't get knocked over. But I think that's something to bear in mind as well. So how are we managing about regression? Has anyone got any ideas for our new practitioner? Bear in mind, regression can take on several forms, can't it? We could be thinking about a child, like we're saying here, sucking their thumb. It could be a child who goes back to needing nappies or waking up in the night or struggling to separate from their parent when they're dropped off in the morning. There's all sorts of different types of regression. If you were on the last session, you'll know that that's a perfectly normal thing for children to go through when they're struggling with big emotions or changes and transitions in their lives. And one of the things we shouldn't do if we want to support them is to try and stop it. Instead, what we should do is support them through it. Speak to parents and ask if anything different is happening or has happened. Yeah, very good, Lindsay. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because again, we might not know, might we? We might not know what's happened. And that can be one of your first indicators that there's something going on. Even with quite older children, I've had school-age children when things have been going on at home, and then you suddenly realise that, hang on, what's going on there? That's not quite their normal behaviour. Regression as a form of communication, yeah, I agree, Marion, and chat with carers to see if there are changes or possibly something they haven't told me or didn't realise their child was upset about. Could also be unwell, so we'd check the child over and also try to help by being understanding and talking about emotions. Yeah, do you know, I think we've got a common theme or thread running through this, haven't we? I'm just going to read Francesca's. I am all for soft approach if they need it. I let them, as long as parents are happy and on the same page. I totally agree, Francesca. If we were going through a traumatic event and the thing that made us feel better was to, I don't know, wear our favourite soft, fluffy dressing gown during the day, for instance. If that it's not hurting anybody else, then just do. We wouldn't want someone to say, no, you can't wear that dressing gown, would we? We would want to say, we would want someone to say, I can see that this is how you're dealing with the situation you're in at the moment. And just one day you'll take that off. And one day this child will stop sucking their thumb and will move through that regression period as we support them through the transition. So that's right. So I was just saying that the common thread here is supporting children with their emotions, isn't it? So if we think of these micro transitions and sort of just generally the child's time with you in the early years, I think we really need to make sure we have quite a big focus on talking about emotions normal and talking about our own emotions as well, that you feel sad about something or you feel really excited or you're worried, because it needs to be normal for it to sort of sink in with children, doesn't it? That's fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to keep chatting. If you've got something you want to add in there or you just want to shout out, that's absolutely fine. Let's see if we can. Right. So here is our reminder of these proven approaches to support transitions. Well, we know this first one, don't we? It needs to be a process, not an event. It needs to be embedded into your practice. Listen to the child. Don't dismiss their worries, because as Marion was saying about that little boy who was moving house and was worried that he had to leave all his toys behind, it would be very easy to just hear the I'm worried about moving to a new house and not take the time to understand actually what is the actual worry and how can I help that child manage that. And as Marion was describing, it's quite easy to manage and sort of give them back a little bit of control. And with that in mind, here we go. Give the child agency. Anyone who's been to any of my other sessions or has come to visit me in my setting know that I'm all about giving children agency. I really want to give children choice and control where possible. Or over very small things sometimes, which colour cup are you going to have? Would you like to wear your shoes or your wellies? All these things that make no difference to me at all. Really makes no difference if they want to wear shoes or wellies, or they've gone to put spare clothes on and they've chosen to wear, I don't know, one pink sock, one blue sock. Who cares? But it's given the child some choice. Always put yourself in the child's position. How would you feel if someone was telling you couldn't do those things? Work in partnership with parents and other settings. I think all of us have said that at some point through this evening, haven't we? Use resources such as photos, books. We didn't touch on transitional objects actually, but we did in the last session. If anyone's not sure what a transitional object is, that's basically a physical object that a child brings from one place to another that might not have any particular relevance apart from that it belongs to the other place. So that's why sometimes you have children turn up with a random thing that they've grabbed on their way out of the door. That's just connecting a physical thing that connects your setting with home. And it's fine. We should just allow it and enable it. If they're turning up obviously with their something valuable, precious, whatever it is, you can deal with that by putting it somewhere where they can see it. But other children aren't going to take it or break it or whatever. Usually it's just something, anything, isn't it? It's the last thing they see as they go out of the door. And quite often, once they're at your setting, they don't actually need to do anything with it. I have a dresser on the side wall of as you come in our door, and anything like that sort of tends to go on there. The children can see it. If they want to go and pick it up, they can. Usually it's completely forgotten until it's home time. It's just that tangible link between one place and another. Be flexible. We've talked about settling in sessions and how we might have a sort of a regular type of setting in that suits most people, but it might not suit everyone. And so it's important to be flexible for the child and for the parents and make it normal and give it time. I think the research we read before when we did the other transition webinar was it can take, I think it was between 6 and 8 weeks for a child's brain to sort of settle into being somewhere new or into a new situation to go through a transition. So we shouldn't rush it. It's fine. Does anyone have any more ideas they wanted to share or questions about anything at all? Doesn't have to be about transitions. And while you're typing, I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll up. There we go. I sometimes ask a child to look after something for me, an object, while they are transitioning. This often helps with a smooth transition. Also, it's a transitional object, Chloe. Well done. I should have read that before I said transitional object. Sometimes you get children with all sorts of random things turning up, don't you? But it's important to them. And if it's important to them, it's important to us, isn't it? Obviously, something valuable, something you don't want one child turning up with something dangerous, but you just, something pointy or sharp or something like that, that needs to be dealt with in a slightly different way. But generally speaking, if they've turned up with a glove that belongs to their mum, that's fine. They just pop it on the side. It's there. They know that it's their transitional object. And vice versa, as Chloe's saying, it's okay to take something from your setting and take it back to their house. You're going to bring it back the next day. And most of these things are very, small things, you're probably not going to take some valuable resource. So let's have a look at Kingsway Preschool. We have just had a meeting with parents, and a top tip for transitional objects and going to school was that a small piece of comforter or the same material as a favourite toy sewn into a pocket or inside jumper so a child can find it and touch it during the day whilst they're transitioning to school. That's such a lovely idea, isn't it? Because quite often by the time a child's gone into school, those comfort toys have been loved to a rag, haven't they? And if you could have just a small piece of that to feel, it would it would be that connection for them, and it would be there all the time. They couldn't lose it. No one else could take it. I think that's a lovely idea, actually. Really nice idea.
Kim, I'm not sure if anyone's thought about things like personal social stories. So for children that struggle with transition, and again, not necessarily transitioning into nursery to start with, but those smaller transitions throughout the time that they're with us, that then sees behavioural changes at home, and things like that, because it does cause those behavioural changes at home, and parents don't know how to deal with it. We make like social stories, but that are personal to the child. So the parent will send us photographs of all the things. So where the child is trying to take that control, but you need to give them a choice or something like that. It'll be within in the story. Or if they're running off in the car park all the time, it would be a story saying, "I can hold mummy's hand as I walk through the car park." But that book becomes the transitional object. They bring it between the two settings. So like from home they can read it, and at nursery they can read it, and then that becomes theirs. And then what we've done with that as well is to support school for those children that do really struggle with certain transitions. We've added the school bit, so it's almost like they're taking something from us to home to school. So there's like that three-way transitional object there.
That's such a good idea, Lisa. Thank you. I was going to say, is it like a fixed book where it's like finished, or do you keep adding to it? But
no, it's just literally like a flimsy folder with like A4 pages where you'd print out the photograph that the parents sent, and you just write a little note under it. It might be, I can get myself dressed in the morning, or I can brush my teeth. Those children that don't brush their teeth, and the parents are like, oh, you have to brush them at nursery and all that. If we put that in place and the children see a picture of themselves doing it, that's quite empowering.
And
it's all very positive, and it's, I can do this and I can do that. I can hold mummy's hand to keep me safe. We had one child that kept undoing their car seat because they didn't want to go to nursery, so they just refused to get in the car seat and kept undoing it. But we built these social stories. I can stay in my car seat to keep myself and mummy safe, and it absolutely does work a treat. And they really kind of cling on to these things, that it becomes really important to them, and they have it in nursery, and we can read the story there, and then they take it home and they read it there, and then as I say, you just add pages to it if you need to. Sometimes it drops off and they don't need it anymore, but for those that really do struggle, and especially it does drop off, and then you know that when you think about school coming, that we think, well, there's going to be a regression there. We know that there's going to be a regression. Then we work with the schools to send photos over so that the pictures, there, especially if they're doing school visits, get some photos that we can add to the book of the child in the school. And it just becomes this object that they've had at home and at nursery that they then used for school. Just an idea.
Thank you, Lisa. I really like that idea. What a great idea. And it's sort of, as you say, it's empowering, isn't it, for the children?
Yeah. Children love photos of themselves. They find it, you've been talking about those, the photo books, we call them family books. So it works mostly for most children. You get the odd child that if they see the picture of their mum, it really upsets them. But I would say that probably for 90% of the children we use family books all of the time, probably not even I wouldn't say even 10% perhaps struggle that when they see the picture of their mum, it upsets them more. But I would say that's pretty rare. The majority of children love their family books, and then they begin to love looking at other children's family books, and then that becomes a communication tool where they begin to talk and share stories from their own home and who their relations are and stuff like that. So we do that. So but we know that photographs of children of themselves are really empowering, and so we use it.
That's such a good idea, because I think quite a lot of things with children, you could talk to them and say it's not safe to I don't know, undo your seatbelt or whatever it is when you're in the car, and they can agree in that moment, but it's quite hard for them to hold that in their head for very long, isn't it? And especially when they can't self-regulate as most adults can, in the heat of the moment when they're upset and crying and they want to undo the seatbelt, they're not going to remember
No.
what they talked about with you with the day before. So yeah, having a picture like that's such a good idea. I really
by reading it as a story, you're embedding that the fact that they can do something. It's almost giving them a little bit of resilience, really. It's like I can stay in my seat to keep myself safe. But we've read that at nursery and we've read it at home, and so you're telling the child they can do it. You're not telling they must do it. That they can do it, and it's almost like a little like a little bit of resilience building. And
yeah, definitely. And children need that positive feedback, don't they? That's really, really helpful. Thank you, Lisa. Chloe says our setting does this also, helps with noticing difference too in people. Sorry, Chloe, which bit were you replying to there? I've sort of lost track a little bit. Oh, hang on, we've got another message. Oh, do you mean the thing that Lisa was talking about? Oh, I see. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good idea. I have done similar things for children when they've had particularly sort of unsettled family lives and they're really struggling with that. But I think that's, such a good idea when you're trying to deal with those recurring behaviours that aren't necessarily safe, and you need a child to be able to understand. And as you say, you're doing it in a positive way rather than a negative way. So that's really good input. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, I think that might be the last bit, but I've got some bits for further reading coming up eventually.